right, we are live. I got one earbud in. We got the synth. I'm going to have to change that playlist at some point, but we should be live on Twitter and YouTube. Oh, let's check. Let's go to Twitter. Let's see. Am I live? There we go. Holy smokers. All right, let's do this. I want to change some of these settings at some point, like the mouse is not great, but we'll get there. Incremental growth, am I right? All right, so today I'm going to be taking a look at the FantasyGuru Dynasty League, year one, almost in the books. We're not quite there, but we have enough information to kind of look at the year, evaluate some of the strategies that worked. Again, it's a Dynasty League, so it's only year one, but I do think there was some pretty fascinating strategies that worked, that didn't. I'm going to go through the league for those that aren't in it, break down the format, how we kind of did things, and all that good stuff. So let's go over there. We'll start there. Listen to that synth, baby. We're riding down in a 1980s car. I'm not a car guy, but we got some cool car. Also, I'm rocking with one headphone. The AirPod is one AirPod, singular. I think my other AirPod's in the couch somewhere. MIA. Nowhere to be found. Brutal stuff. You hate to see it, but I gotta listen to the synth while we're talking Dynasty. So, all right. So to kind of break down the initial setup here, 2 divisions, 28 teams, 30 roster spots. 2 copies. So that means it's 2 player pools, right? So when we did our startup, there's 2 of every player as we go through. It was 1 startup. And then we have 1 Devy spot. There's no injured reserve in this league. It's a best ball league. So all your players get optimized. Your lineup gets optimized every week. We're not dealing with any of that start sit shenanigans. SSS, start shit shenanigans. Hold on. Start shit shenanigans. That's what it is. If your player gets a lot of points, you're getting them points. So, all right. So, again, 1 through 18, we got a few more weeks left, but with a best ball, again, it's not really, there's no luck-based factors, in terms of week to week, head to head. There's nothing like that. It's like whichever team scores the most points by the end of the year, you're rocking it. So it's 11 starters, huge league, 11 starters, super flex, and then, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. You have artistic freedom to do whatever the hell you want. However you think you can optimize this roster, and we'll talk about that. Some of the guys who kind of optimized roster management in year one, how to play the quarterbacks, what is best, for weekly starters between running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and all that good stuff. So that is the basic build. Off-season waivers, no in-season waivers. You got your roster, you got your boys, you're going to battle, and that's it. If everyone kind of falls off, like we've had this year with quarterbacks, then this wasn't the year for you. All right, let's go. Yeah, so let's plug away here. Let's go to the scoring. Pretty standard. Quarterback is where I think it should be. And again, not everyone aligns with this, but 5 points per passing touchdown instead of the usual 4. 0.5 for every 1 passing yard. I believe that's every 20 passing yards, if I'm correct. Yeah, every 20 passing yards is a point instead of the usual 25. Juice up the passing yards, yo. juice up those passing yards. There's a bonus for passing plays of 40-plus yards. You get an extra point for quarterbacks, extra point for wide receiver. A run of 20-plus yards gets an extra point. And it doesn't affect scoring too much, but I just think plays like that should be rewarded more so than, if a guy gets 20 yards on one carry, I think that's more valuable than a guy getting 20 yards on 5 carries. You know what I mean? So giving a little extra juice there. It doesn't matter that much, but I do think it does kind of give a little boost. Honestly, if I were to do this again, I would probably boost that up or make it, like a multiplier. So 30 yards is 2 points, 40 yards is 3 points, something like that. I think that's a better way, especially with wide receivers. A guy getting a 40-yard play instead of, 7 catches for 40 yards, that play clearly had a bigger impact, than that guy chugging away on 5-yard catches. So I'm big on still valuing deep threats in the NFL, and with our current setup with PPR, we just drastically overvalue slot receivers, which have become much more prominent in the last decade, and drastically undervalue a guy who can go deep, a George Pickens, a DK Metcalf, guys like that. Tyreek overcomes all this, but even a guy like Tyreek as well. They're so impactful, but fantasy-wise, a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to dominate. Amon-Ra's awesome, don't get me wrong, but you guys get what I'm saying. All right, let's go to the league. So again, we're 16 weeks into this, and all the scores are pretty solidified. Year one for your boy, we'll get into that, but didn't go great. But again, Dynasty in year one, I've kind of always 50-50. I'm like, all right, if I'm gonna give myself some vets to start the year to give myself a shot, and if it's not working, I'll consolidate and build towards the next year. As you can see, there were some strategies that were like, I'm going for the number 1 pick. I'm gonna not, overtly tank, but in best ball, if you're going young or you stack draft picks or whatever, you're probably not going to compete with some of these other teams. So let's kind of just go through some of the top teams here. We got a really tight race for the top 2 teams. Tyler Beaker had one of the most immaculate early season runs I've ever seen in a Dynasty League. Look at those scores. I mean, just ridiculous. So let's take a look at that roster and break down what he did. So the first thing you're going to notice, he did trade for Justin Herbert. We had a trade window in our league, 3 weeks, where you can trade, the guys that are tanking, or kind of packing it up because they know they're not gonna win. You guys can get your draft picks, and the team's going for it all. Especially in a best ball league, I would highly suggest trying to trade if you're a win now. In a season-long league where there's head-to-head and a ton of luck involved in the playoffs, it's like, all right, how much is one guy gonna affect things? Is he gonna have a good week when I need him to? You're kind of threading a lot of needles there. But in best ball, you're just trying to stack volume. So if you're getting players who can have a few good weeks towards the second half of the year, it makes a lot more sense to trade. So as you can see with Tyler, I think one of the biggest things he did that was so crucial to build this team is the quarterback situation, right? So he had Anthony Richardson. He traded away Justin Herbert. He had Kirk Cousins, I believe. But what he did was he valued the backups. And if anyone's played fantasy football this year, backups were incredibly important. Like getting this year out of Gardner Minshew for Tyler was enormous. Getting that early season run out of Josh Dobbs was enormous. I mean, just a huge game changer with some of these top quarterbacks struggling or guys getting hurt. Having a guy like Josh Dobbs putting together this type of year, I mean, in best ball is just immense. And I've known this for years, but I still didn't prioritize it. The Gardner Minshew. Tyler got a full year out of the Colts quarterback because he just grabbed Minshew. So this was really sharp play by him. This was not just random. I think he looked at quarterback and said, hey, this is a 14-team league. Well, 28, but 14-team league. And he said, this can be valuable. 5 quarterback starts. So this is good information for all of us going forward. And again, if we're looking at these top teams, not every year is going to be the same. Some year running backs dominate. Some year quarterbacks have historic seasons. Some year wide receivers. But I think when we're looking at teams and going forward for our dynasty information and what we're going to take forward, stuff like this, okay, backups are valuable in best ball. And so I'm kind of on this. It's like we're in a weird spot at quarterback. And this might last a few more years. How freaking valuable was Josh Dobbs earlier this year in best ball? So that's something to really think about going forward, and something I've taken away and I'm going to value significantly moving forward. So just throwing that out there as an idea. You had Jacobs, McCaffrey. Jacobs banged up, but having McCaffrey this year in a 14-teamer is a huge, huge game changer, especially with running back going through a lot of transition. So he has his every week running back locked in, and some of these other guys can help out here and there, but he's got the crown jewel. And then you go to wide receivers. He just drafted really, really well. Getting Zay Flowers as a rookie, getting Brandon Cooks, who's had some good weeks, Keenan Allen having basically a career year with all the injuries there in Los Angeles, Brandon Ayuk having another great year. These weren't like, looking back with hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, of course he drafted Brandon Ayuk and Keenan Allen and Zay Flowers, but when you think back to July, August, September when this draft happened, it wasn't that obvious. Even a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, right, coming off kind of an injury year, he's gotten some starts out of Wan'Dale this year. Super valuable from a guy like that late in the draft. Even a guy like Cedric Wilson, I think he's got some startable weeks out of. Again, with 11 teamers, you're not looking for 15 fantasy points from everyone. Sometimes 10 points is a huge game changer. So Christian Kirk got hurt, but that's another guy, that's super valuable. So when you look at this build, it makes a lot of sense. And then honestly, I think his biggest hit and the biggest reason, he basically sacrificed tight end this year, except Sam Laporta. This was just shark level. Look at this. We knew this was a good tight end class, and Tyler used one of his rookie picks on this guy who was going to be a starter. And again, in a 14-team league, you're going to have to sack one position in at least year one. He chose tight end, but he did make this pretty savvy pick here with Laporta. It's like, we're going into the year, we were kind of like, all right, Laporta could start getting good reviews out of camp. Like, we didn't really get to see what his receiving profile was at Iowa. It's like, all right, we'll see what happens. This Lions team looks pretty good. Well, hell, this Lions team was real good. And Laporta's been a starter all year and a fantasy starter all year, having one of the best rookie tight end seasons of all time. So 3 weeks to go. He's already got 71 catches, 9 touchdowns, 758 yards. This is a Gronk level rookie year, and getting that, as a late first, early second round rookie pick is just, anyone who got Laporta this year in rookie drafts is huge. So, when I look back at this, I say he had some major hits. Laporta, Zay Flowers, really valuable rookie. Keenan Allen, apex year. McCaffrey, apex year. And then the quarterbacks. That's just going to be tough to beat. So shout out Tyler. It's going to be really close here as we head towards the end of the year between the good news is, so we have separate payouts, right? We have a whole league payout, and then we have individual divisions. So Tyler's 100% going to take down his division. It's going to be really tight the last couple weeks between him and Johnny Blazed, who we're going to look at next. So as you can see, owning Jake Browning is just super sharp. I mean, that's just a sharp play, and it's paid off enormously. You can see the other quarterbacks haven't really worked out. Tannehill only started a few games. Stafford been in and out of the lineup, but he's been great of late. But as I said, what's the theme of this year? Hitting on some backups. And I mean, Jake Browning, that's been a huge, huge hit. That's kind of sustained this ship. And again, if we're looking at a win now roster, you go and win now. You're saying year one, I'm going for it. And I think one of the things with Dynasty is like, someone's got to win in year one, y'all. Someone's got to win. We can't have all the young players. Someone's going for the win. Grabbing a guy like Mike Evans on a win now team, I mean, it's just huge. Justin Jefferson got hurt. The irony is that both best teams had Justin Jefferson and basically got, a month of what he really could be, and didn't get the rest. Both had Ayuk. So you can see some similarities here. Both had Wandale. But Johnny Blazed had Tyreek. So we're going to see, if this team can sustain. The difference here is, Evan Ingram's been solid. Dalton Schultz been solid at times. But the running backs here, a lot of older vet running backs. And again, these aren't apex seasons from these guys. The best of Alvin Kamara's behind us. The best of Joe Mixon's behind us. Aaron Jones for sure. Saquon, God, it's just a nightmare year. But they're still every week starters, and in a 14-team league, you could argue they probably went undervalued in the startup because, they're older. But getting these vet years, these top 15, top 10 years are so valuable in a 14-teamer. So, well played, and, I think heading into next year, this team is probably one that could just run it back next year and still be competing. Quarterback is a mess. Not many future picks, if I recall correctly. But, this team is juiced. So if you got Jefferson and Reek next year, I mean, you're still in line. And I don't envision Kamara and Mixon getting fully replaced either. Mixon might have to find a new home, but, you got Montgomery, who's been great at times this year. Hasn't found the end zone as much in the second half of the year, but, this is just a great build. And it could have gone haywire with Stafford, but getting him back in there, getting him healthy, this might need some work in the offseason, but as far as this year is concerned, this was a very well-built roster, and, very impressive. So, shout out to Jonathan. Great build. All right, so, let's take a look at Rich. I think Rich is in third place right now. Rich had a darn good build. There's his little pup. I don't know if that's actually his pup, but that's what we're looking at here. So Josh Allen, just another monstrous year. So Rich went the other way, right? So he built around Josh Allen. He also had Sam Howell, who, he's gotten benched a few times. He's had some horrible games, but for this format specifically, getting a guy like Sam Howell, look at these results. With juiced up passing stats, Sam Howell's a super, super valuable guy. Got a few starts out of Jimmy G, got some nice starts out of Zach Wilson. 14-teamer. This is a pretty solid build. Maybe heading towards next year, Sam Howell might not be a starter again, but you always have Josh Allen holding it down for you. So, yeah. Again, I've been on record of saying I don't know how Josh Allen's game is going to age, especially getting all these rushing attempts as we head towards the end of the year. But He's got a great arm, and while there's mistakes being made, we know he can air it out. So, yeah. All right. Running back kind of faded, but he did get Jahmyr Gibbs, who's turned it on, and then he hit on Ty Chandler, which has been, he's gotten some really nice starts out of him in the second half of the year. So that's huge. Guys like that, he got a big Chase Brown week a few weeks ago, 20 points, and he's getting these 7-8 pointers. Again, this is different than a 10-team season-long league because none of that matters there, but it does matter in this format, and that's what I love so much about it. So if you roster a Chase Brown, 5th-round pick in the draft, he matters. That 20-point week is huge. So anyway, I don't know if Josh Kelly really helped him that week 1. So 2 starts. You got 2 starts out of Josh Kelly. It's nice. Tank Dell. So if there's a Sam Laporta for this team, it's probably Tank Dell. He hasn't been getting much out of him in the second half of the year, but can't be overstated how valuable getting weeks like this, 20, 27, 29, 29, 18, 17, out of just a, throwaway 3rd-round pick. Had Puka, picked him up on waivers. For the teams that didn't get a guy like Puka, it's going to be hard to overcome. So, Amari Cooper's been solid. DeAndre Hopkins been solid. Having a guy like Isaiah Likely on your roster in the second half of the year, getting huge fantasy points as we head towards the second half, just enormous stuff. Hunter Henry, he's had some good games here and there, but in particular the last couple weeks as we head towards the end of the year, we see, so it's kind of like if you've played best ball for a while, you kind of know how it works. There's first half of the year, some guys are kind of hitting their ceiling, and then it kind of tilts towards the second half. Some guys, it's the whole year, but for most players, they have a better first or second half. And getting Isaiah Likely, Hunter Henry combo in these last couple weeks. And the biggest factor here, win now team, 3rd overall, looking at some win money for this year, and he's got Marvin Harrison coming up the pipe next year. So this team is win now, but adding a guy like Marvin Harrison next year gives you a crown jewel. He can either trade that for a ton of equity or just hold him and have a fun Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson career from one of the best prospects of the decade. So that's another factor. There's one Devy spot, and nobody can trade it. Because I've been around the block, y'all. I've seen how you work. I've seen it. I've been in Devy leagues before. I've seen how it goes. The guys who have never played in Devy leagues before just trade all their Devy picks to the monsters taking advantage of them. And then we get into year 2, and then one team has 5, has Marvin Harrison Jr., Caleb Williams, and Brock Bowers, and 3 firsts. And then that one team that went for the win now in year 1 is leaving. So, nope, not here, not in Russ's house. You get your Devy pick, you root for your college player like it's meant to be, and then we have some fun in the off season. So, and I think, beyond one Devy spot, you really risk diluting the rookie draft completely. Having 3, each team having 3 Devy spots. I've done those, and it's just like you get to the actual rookie draft and there's just nothing left. So I like having the rookie draft matter. So that's why we're doing that. Let's take a look at a few more, and then we'll kind of go to some of the bottom rosters, and then we'll pack it in. So, all right. Another good roster here. Kirk Cousins, Stroud. I mean, talk about a huge hit. Stroud for the passing ability. Russell Wilson, a guy that hasn't had a great year, but for this format has had a pretty solid year. And Gino hasn't had a great year, but again, for this format, James Conner, Dalvin Cook, Pacheco, Tony Pollard, Kyren. So Kyren Williams, absolute league winner in best ball this year. Having him with McCaffrey, Tony Pollard's kind of come on at the end of the year. James Conner's had some good weeks, so nice win now build here. Nico Collins in his breakout year, that's a huge hit right there for where he was going in the offseason. Great pick there. Mike Evans, again, age 30, but putting together a huge year on year one. George Pickens, many people forget. George Pickens over-under was 750 yards before the season. So he has well surpassed what his expectations were, even though the antics and all this stuff and people wanting him off the team. He's actually exceeded. He's like a 7th round fantasy pick, closer to 6th, 5th round by the end of the offseason. But he has been pretty good this year. He exceeded or kind of hit expectations. It's just there's been some bad results after a good start to the year. And then Hawkinson kind of holding it down for the tight end position here. Big week. And then he's got Darren Waller for the last couple weeks. So, yeah, nice roster, sure. Nice hits there. George Pickens, Mike Evans, Kyren. I mean, those are game changers. So, let's take a look at Chuck. Hurts, Kyler, Stafford. That's pretty damn good. ETN in his career year, Josh Jacobs, and that's really all he rolled with at running back, getting some Ty Chandler years, but Devontae Adams, it's not a great year, but again, 14-teamer, 5 catches for 50 yards, going to start for you every week. So Romeo Doubs, nice beginning of the year, kind of held it down. Marquise Brown, been startable for some of the year. McLaurin, again, you look at these guys and you say, hey, wait a second. These guys were really tough start sits. Yes, but if you just mash them all together and say, all right, figure it out, MFL, just start them all in the right weeks, kind of worked out a little better for you. Tight end struggle bus, but he did have Logan Thomas, who's giving you points every week, which kind of hard to come by some weeks. Getting Pat Freiermuth back for the end of the year. Again, you can see compared to like Tyler, who hit the nuts with Laporta, that's kind of the difference between his team and this team, which is otherwise very strong. So nice build here. And Volke, last one we're going to be looking at the top. Stroud again. Okay, and this is the other fun thing about a 2-copy league. You see the similarities of what worked and what didn't. So drafting CJ Stroud, again, you drafted CJ Stroud, you weren't expecting year one production. You were kind of expecting him to struggle and be terrible. And nope. And then you got Jared Goff here, who's had a great year. So that's a very nice young base for a quarterback. Love the play on Jameis, especially with what we talked about earlier. Jameis is a guy that's probably going to be starting games in the next 5 years. We don't know where, we don't know how, what quarterback injury is going to happen, but he's certainly good enough to play in the NFL. So Rachaad White, one of the best fantasy picks of the year. Been a huge hit for this team. And again, look at this team. Off-season wise, you maybe thought Damian Harris would have a role in Buffalo, Antonio Gibson. None of that worked, but he had Zach Moss and Rachaad White. That's going to boost him. Zach Moss first half of the year and Rachaad White the whole year. That's enough. You're good. Second half of the year's been rough for this team. We've seen some major injuries. Chase, Christian Kirk, Mike Williams happened early, but point remains. This team's kind of gotten neutralized by injuries, but he also got Deebo Samuel coming on strong in the second half of the year. So we'll see how he finishes out at the end of the year. And then, Evan Ingram, huge hit this year. It doesn't feel like it because he hasn't scored the touchdowns as much, but 88 catches from this guy in 15 weeks. Probably going to end the year with 100 catches. So, big year from Ingram. All right, and then there's some other teams, as you can see, that kind of just said, you know what, guys, F it. F it. I don't care. I don't care about this year. We're packing it in. Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers. That combination not going to work this year. Nick Chubb. You know, some solid pieces. T. Higgins, Marvin Jones, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Njoku. I mean, there's some nice pieces here. And he's got Drake May, which is a huge benefit heading into next year. Going to have Joe Burrow back. Going to have Aaron Rodgers back. So this team heading into next year, going to have some high picks. Has a nice base. T. Higgins probably going to find a new home. Hit on Josh Downs, and has DJ Moore, Metcalf. Yeah, this is going to be a good setup for next year. But again, you can see one or two big injuries in this type of league, and you're just going to fall behind quick. Kind of, you know, one of the things. All right. So, as you can see, this team, a little light. And a little light on purpose. Young players, Devontae Smith, Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson. And then we got Trevor Lawrence, and we got Caleb Williams. So going into next year, we're going to have, you know, 2 number 1 overall picks on Crop Dustin's roster. We're going to have some nice young pieces. And we're going to have some high Devy picks, high rookie picks to kind of build around this young core. Mixon, you know, that's the one guy I look at as like, you might want to hold on to him for next year, because if this team starts to exceed expectations, you know, maybe Quentin Johnston develops, Marvin Mims develops, you know, Garrett Wilson gets some competent quarterback play, Jameson Williams develops, you're going to start seeing this team be able to compete and get higher up in the rankings, and that's going to work out well. So there you go. That's those. And Beandog. All right. So he played the right backup game as well. It just didn't work out. But as you can see, Ritter and Fields, that's a nice combo for this league. But again, you see, adding that Kyren or adding that Zach Moss versus not, that's just going to be a game changer here. But you can see this team, Charbonnet, Young, Fields, Young, Addison, you know, guys like that. Garrett Wilson, Kincaid, Kmet. I mean, this is a young team, and then he's got Drake May as well. So again, these are all the top picks in the Devy draft. But with the Devy draft being with the startup, you're kind of sacking, as they say in chess, material for this year for the long term. So Drake May, once you get on this roster with Fields, it's going to be a nice combo. And Midnight. Prescott, nice quarterback. Braylon Allen. Yeah. George Pickens, Cooper Kupp, just a tough, you know, Taylor. I mean, just the injuries, too much to overcome at this point. But, you know, we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. So, there you go. That's the review. There's a lot of teams here. I don't have the bandwidth to go through 28 rosters right now. But maybe we can hop on again, and if you guys have teams you want to look at or whatever, we can go through that after the season. But I did just want to kind of go through and review what happened this year, because this was super entertaining to me. There was a lot of trades. There was good waiver action. Yeah, loved all the different roster builds. So again, I highly suggest you do this in your dynasty leagues. If you're not in this league, go through your leagues. If you didn't win, see what the teams that won did and take away what you think was actually real versus, maybe getting a little lucky. So I found that to be the successful way to do things. And yeah, so anyway, all right, y'all. Thank you all for tuning in. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Head over to FantasyGuru.com. Head over to our Discord. We're always talking Dynasty. We're always talking draft. We're always talking, season long. Got start sets. If you are in a non-best ball league, well, hey, we got you covered. So come hang out. And, yeah, Tyler Beaker. Again, I was talking about all the stuff he was doing with this league earlier. Maybe ask him, hey, what's going on? How'd you do that? Say, hey, Rich, how'd you know about some of your guys there? What made you pick Tank Dell? Huh? Punk? How'd you get Tank Dell, Rich? How'd you get Puka? How'd you do that? And then scream at them, and then they'll answer it. So, anyway, thank you all for tuning in. And hey, if you're not in this league, there might be some openings. We'll see 28 teams. Usually there's 1 or 2 people that life changes. So if you have interest, connect, come over to FantasyGuru.com and hit up the Discord, and maybe you'll get a shot at joining this league. It's a lot of fun. So again, I'll catch you guys later, and see you next time.